Hey guys, I want to make a quick video for you about the confidence intervals project. So I'm already in the Canvas page for modules and I'm going to click on the project. Okay, I'm just going to walk us through what's going on in each of the guidelines. I'm going to scroll down to the instructions. So hopefully by now you've read through this one at least one time. Okay, so our first instruction says we want to ask a question that involves the change in political party affiliation for one party between two dates. So the one key thing we need to make sure that we select here is a single political party. So right now I want you to think, who do I want to ask the question about? Is it the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, or the those who have identified as independent? The second thing I need you to think about are the 2 years during which you want to gather this information. We want to at least have 1 year between the two dates that are chosen, okay? So in the two examples given, we can see that one is 1 year between the two, and the following example is a 4-year span. So it doesn't matter the span of years as long as we have at least one. So we've chosen a single political party and we've chosen 2 different years. And then I want you to choose a month within that year so that we're consistent. We're in the month that we gather the data from. Okay. So first, you've chosen your political party, then you've selected your year, now you've selected the month throughout the year. Now let's read these examples just to make sure we're clear on the question that's being asked. The last thing we have to do is decide whether we believe that the proportion has increased or decreased, okay? So it says, has the proportion of adults nationwide who identify as Democrat increased from June 2019 to June 2020? So the first one is an example of how you might ask if you a question for increasing. And then we have another example. Has the proportion of adults nationwide who lean towards identifying as Republican decreased from December 2016 to December 2020? Okay, so these are 2 examples. You only need to choose one question, right? You don't have to ask 2 separate questions. It's one question about a single political party during a specific month and year. And then I need you to choose a direction, whether you think it increased or decreased over that time change. So that's our first step. Okay. So first you're going to ask the question. Step 2, you're going to go into the StatCrunch file that's linked here in the project description, and you're going to find the 2 proportions that match the month, the year, and the political party that you chose. Okay, I can open up the file at the end and show you how to take a look at it. Just write a sentence here. You can use this as a kind of a layout for it. So you can kind of fill in the blanks. You want to replace the month and year and percentage, possibly the political party, and then the month and year and percentage again. Okay, and political party. You just want to make sure that this matches what you asked in your question above. Step 3, use your graphing calculator to find a 95% confidence interval for each proportion. This to me is crucial. We want to find 2 separate confidence intervals on each proportion. Now, if I have a single proportion and I'm doing a confidence interval, that means that this is a 1 prop Z interval in your calculator. We've told you what N is. We've told you found your P hat, excuse me, based on the Gallup poll from the file, and you already stated it above. Notice this 29% was converted into a 0.29, and this 33% was converted into a 0.33. So we can see exactly where those values came from. It will be your job to calculate X, okay? And remember that calculating X is the same as multiplying N times P hat. So you'll be multiplying these 2 values together. 1,000 times 0.29. That's for this example, not yours. And then this example would also use 1,000 times 0.33 to find the X values. Okay. Finally, after we get our 1 prop Z intervals, we're going to have 2 separate intervals. One for the first month and year, another for the second month and year. Then you can interpret those intervals. First, I'd like you to interpret them like, I am 95% confident that the proportion of people who identified as, let's use this example, Democrat in June 2019 falls between this number and this number. Okay. Another interpretation for the second one would be, I am 95% confident that the proportion of people who identify as Democrat in June 2020 falls between this lower bound and this upper bound. Okay, so that would be 2 sentences that interpret both of my intervals. Then I do really want you to think about whether or not these 2 intervals show an increase or decrease based on what you asked in the very first question. That's what I'd like you to discuss also in this paragraph. Go ahead and read this. Give me a try at this paragraph, and I will always pre-grade this, like give you early feedback. The project is fair game for early feedback as well. Okay, step 5. I'm trying to go quick so this video isn't too long. This step, we're going to do a different approach, which means we're going to do 2 proportions at the same time. If we're going to use 2 proportions, then we're in a 2 prop Z interval. So it still says we're finding a 95% confidence interval, but now it's in the difference of proportions. So that means we're going to use a 2 prop Z interval. This implies that you're going to choose the first year as group 1 and the second year as group 2. Okay. Or if you reverse that, excuse me, not feeling 100% today. So, and I'm also sitting in the dark, so I apologize for that. You're gonna, in this case, use P1 and P2 as you see fit. The example here, excuse me, uses proportion 1 for the first year and proportion 2 as the second year. You can actually identify them in any way that you wish to, as long as you let me know how you've chosen those proportions. Remember, here you still have to find X1 and X2 to be able to run this 2 proportion Z interval. Finally, in step 6, you're going to interpret the interval. Okay, so you just made a 2 prop Z interval and you want to interpret that. Remember that this is an interval on 2 groups. So the signs are really important. Whether the entire interval is positive, which means that the first group is bigger. Whether the entire interval is negative, which means the second group is bigger. Or whether your interval goes from negative to positive, which means we can't tell if there was a change in the groups. That's really important to discuss here, okay? So we want to interpret our interval. I am 95% confident that the difference in proportions of Democrats between June 2019 and June 2020 falls between this lower bound and this upper bound. But then I also want to talk about whether or not that describes a change, whether it really did increase or decrease, like I tried to ask earlier in the project. Finally, okay, you're going to just summarize how did we actually provide an answer. So just remind me, did we see an increase or a decrease, okay, based on those interpretations? And that's all I'm expecting, okay? That I hope that that seems a little less daunting now that we've walked through it together. Oh, I almost stopped the recording, but I promised you guys that I would look at the data file. I apologize, guys. Okay, specific data for the assignment. Okay, here. Oh, no, this is incorrect. Sorry, this is more learning. This is the optional learning. I'm so sorry, guys. It's right here. Whew, hello. Okay, so for example, the project before the example said June 2019. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Don't get sick on me here. So like I would pick, you know, one of the dates in June 2019, and then I would also pick one of the dates in, or the only date in June 2020, which is right here. And then I'd scan the chart. And if you see the 33, I'm so sorry, guys. The 33 right here is the second number that was in the project prompt, and the 29 that's highlighted in pink down here is the first number from the project prompt. So that's where the numbers came from in the example that was walked through. Okay, now I will stop sharing. Good luck, guys. And as always, let me know if you have any questions.